Everybody, today the lesson of Professor Andrea Borgia is very interesting. He's a friend from National Commission Evaluation Impact Assessment in Rome, and he is a specialist for geothermal energy, and he spoke about this thematic. It's very interesting, very new perspective, and I hope is profitable for all of you. Yes, Professor Andrea Borgia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Franco. I'm very happy to be leading this small session of geothermal energy for your department, and I hope that will be a success. Even though because of coronavirus I cannot be present at Perugia, and that would have made my lessons much easier than what will be now, because I'm not used to at all to speak in front of a computer. The first thing that perhaps we should do is to go around and present ourselves to all the other people, telling where we actually are, and possibly to show our faces so that we start knowing each other. Perhaps Ettore Stamponi could start, if possible. Ettore, you have to activate your microphone, I guess.
Yes, I'm sorry. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ettore Stamponi. I'm from Perugia. This is my second year of PhD, and I'm studying smart grids and both electric and thermal grids, and with a company named Loccioni, and that's all.
What about you, Costanza?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Costanza. I'm attending the second year of the PhD course, and my topic is thermal performance of aerogel filled in innovative glazing systems interspaces. That's all.
Costanza. Chiara, is this your turn now?
Chiara, il microfono, non si è sentito nulla.
Oh, sorry. Hello, everybody. I'm Chiara Quintaliani. I'm a civil engineer, and my work is about recovering masonry in existing building. I'm attending the second year of this PhD, and that's all.
Ed, I think you should show up. Can you?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Can we see you, or?
Yeah, I turn on my camera, maybe.
Oh, good. We cannot hear you, Ed.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Oh, yes.
Dear Professor, thank you very much. My name is Eidgul. I am first year PhD student in CRB, Center for Research of Biomass, and my research field is renewable energy integration and energy production from biomass and energy efficiency, building energy efficiency.
Where are you from originally, Eddie?
I am from Pakistan.
Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Professor. Thank you very much.
I worked a long time in Pakistan in the early year 2000, 2001, 2002.
That was very great, Professor.
Yeah.
In Islamabad.
Very good memories.
Thank you.
I was even in the northwestern territories of Pakistan in Dir.
Oh, Dir, yes, Sawat and Dir. It's very
Sawat
beautiful
and
area.
Dir. And,
Yes.
in Murrikawutta, in Abbottabad.
Yes.
All the northern Pakistan.
Yeah, I am also from northern side, near
good.
Islamabad.
Good. Very happy to have you in the course.
Thank you very much, Professor. It's a pleasure for me to attend this course.
So who is left? There is one is not signed in yet, I guess. Is that correct?
Yes, I think.
It should be, well, now I'm not used to run the course right from the screen now of the computer, and therefore I have some difficulties, and I apologize from start about this. I'll try to do my best, but I have to change the format of the course, and the way I would like to do this is to, like at the beginning, to start right away with a paper about a geothermal field in Italy. It's the geothermal field of Mount Amiata, and it's a very old paper. But apart from this, the geologic maps and all the geophysical maps that describe this field are perhaps still among the best around for most geothermal fields. And then I would like to go on into, I'm sure you are aware of the Buckingham Pi theorem. So how to have a first gut approach with a dimensionless number to geothermal fields, and how to try to understand how the geothermal fields behave and what we can do out of them. Then I would like to go on, if possible, with the equations the differential equations that govern how geothermal energy is stored and also retrieved from a geothermal field. And finally, I think I would like to spend some time on new technology, well, a little bit on old and new technology about developing geothermal fields. In the past year, actually last year, there were, for the first time, implemented new technology that attempt to drain only the heat from the geothermal field. And that, although we don't know how successful these are, is certainly what we would like to do in the future. One of the important aspects of this new technology is that they may allow also the storage of heat as opposed to just the drainage of heat from geothermal field. These are 3 days. 3 days will be just full. It will be extremely important for me and for if you can ask questions. Questions are never stupid, only answers are stupid. So please do your questioning, interrupt me any moment, and I will try to do my best to answer. Probably there could be times in which I will not answer these questions. Now, if I understand you are engineers, so you are mainly involved in what is the engineering part of the geothermal fields, while I am a geologist, even though I worked a lot in modeling and but still, from the geological point of view, I will be modeling. I'll be modeling geothermal fields, and but it would be a good, from your side, from your perspective, a good time to have a feeling of what a geologist or geophysicist or the modeler can offer you, so that you can then implement your engineering part into geothermal fields. At the end, how to make an exam, because I guess you have to go through an exam. Probably the best thing for me is to create an exam at the end of this course, trying to figure out what is the best way so that you can give the best to the exam. Try. I mean, it's 3 days. It's very short time to learn. So you have to tell me if you would like to do the exam right away, or we could do the exam perhaps next week, giving you the time to study the material that we will go over in these days, these 3 days, and perhaps, and I could be one day ready to answer your additional questions. That could be. I think if we go through the material of the course in these 3 days, and then you take some time to review also the registrations, perhaps your notes, and then ask some more questions, and we could have perhaps some extra questions, say on Friday or Monday, next Monday, right before. I think it will be best on Friday before, so that you have the weekend, and then we do the exam next week on Monday. Now, the way I do it, I totally allow you all the materials that you will collect during this course, and all the books and everything you need. So I'm not really, you're supposed to take the exam on your own, but all notes and the recordings of these lessons, although I think it would be nice on your side if you can take a look at the recordings that I did 2 years ago. These are probably much longer, but may clarify many of the points. One thing I would like to do in the last day is to do a little bit of modeling of a geothermal field. So actual hands-on modeling of the geothermal field. I'm not, we are going to use Stuff 2 for that, but I'm not really sure how effective it will be on the computer. I hope it will be effective. I guess I would need to run the whole model in front of you, and you have to stop me and try to ask and understand, and ask questions and trying to understand what I'm doing. The problem will be very simple, but it will be sort of a gut feeling for you of what modeling can do, and I think it will be very important. Modeling in these days has evolved very much in geothermal fields, and now we can include not only the thermal modeling and the fluid dynamic modeling of the geothermal fields, but also all the chemistry that goes with it, and also so chemical reactions between rocks and the fluid, and also, which is even more important these days for geothermal field development, what is the stresses changes, the stress field change in a geothermal field while you are developing. And this is extremely important for induced seismicity, as you may know. And as you may know, induced seismicity is one of the things that particularly in underdeveloped countries are very dangerous because buildings are perhaps not made to sustain large earthquakes. Our modeling that we are going to present, because it's too short, the course, is going only to include thermal and fluid dynamics, not chemistry, not stresses. But I mean, it's sort of a start to go into these problems. I see that the last person has not joined yet. I'm not sure if you have any question that you would like to ask or any particular interest that you would like to show. I don't even know if my English is good enough.
Thank you, Professor. No, I did not have any question, and I can understand everything.
What about the Italians?
No,
Are they able to follow? Please stop me, interrupt me anytime. My English is sort of an Italian English. So
yeah.
perhaps in some cases you may understand me better. In some cases perhaps you would not. Please stop me, interrupt me anytime.
Okay, Professor. Thank you.
So the first thing that I would like you to do is to send me your email so I can start sharing some material with you. You can type your email on the chat, I guess.
Okay.
My email, I type it right away. My email is the one below here that you may see. Allora, stamponi.
Qualche problema, Andrea?
No, sto copiando le mail per mandargli materiale.
Ah, ok.
Forse avrei dovuto farlo prima, ma...
Ma puoi anche farlo dopo? Perché lo vuoi mandare adesso?
Insomma, se ce l'hanno preferisco perlomeno un'email mandarglielo per vedere se gli arriva.
Puoi condividere lo schermo, poi.
Sì, certo, lo farò. L'unica cosa, se c'è qualcuno che mi sa dare l'email della persona che deve ancora...
Id, can you write your mail?
Yes, I am trying. I am writing, but my laptop is little slow, so.
Allora, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Angela Serra?
Sì.
Ma c'hai un'email di dove?
Dell'ufficio, ho messo quella dell'ufficio, almeno faccio prima perché...
Tamponi, cardinali, Chiatti, Quintaliani, Fiorini e Serra. 6. Va bene? Li ho nominati tutti?
No, professore, manca Id Gul.
Ah, giusto.
Gliela cerco io e gliela sto cercando, gliela scrivo in chat, va bene?
Id, can you send your email on the chat? Are you still online? Sembra che sia fuori, Id. Angela Serra, Id non c'è. Compressa. Copy. I send you an email with an attachment that is the one we are going to read now with the start of the lesson. Did you receive the email?
I am checking. I'm refreshing it maybe. No, not yet.
Professore, se vuole può inviarla anche in chat, mettendolo allegato, se ritiene.
Sì, I had some problem with the chat, and sometimes it takes too long, and it makes impossible to discuss in the chat because we are filling in the full channel. I think you should have received it.
Yes, I received.
Yeah, yes, me too.
Did everybody receive it?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Ettore, did you receive it?
Yes, Professor.
Please, everybody call me Andrea.
Okay.
Otherwise, I get... Angela, did you receive it? Not yet.
No.
What about Ed?
Yes, I received.
Costanza, no.
Sì, mi è arrivata adesso, grazie.
A me non ancora.
on the meantime, I can talk a little bit about this paper. Still today, the kind of investigation that you want to do for geothermal system are about what was done in the 60s by Enel. Enel is the practically only Italian geothermal company, and all the geothermal fields in Italy are run by Enel. And in those days, Enel was a state company and has become a private company much later on. So being a state company belonged to the Italian government in practice, and it was free to do whatever they wanted. In those days, there were no limitation, environmental limitation, or no environmental regulation. So they were able to do really a kind of work that it would be, I think, just about impossible today. And therefore, I think that this is really sort of a milestone in geothermal energy, this work. Everybody has received it or not? No.
No.
Chiara e Angela, vediamo un po'. Chiara e Angela. Sembra corretto. Angela, ma io che Angela.serra, no?
Sì? @bakeryhooks.com.
Ma .com o .co?
Com.
Ah, ecco perché, io ho sbagliato.
Ok.
Allora, message send again. Evidentemente non ho copiato.
Completo.
Sì. Ah, che faccio? Com. E invece l'altra è che non ha ricevuto, chi è?
Io, Chiara Quintaliani, senza punto.
Chiara Quintaliani senza punto, yahoo.it.
Esatto.
Yahoo, io c'ho un problema. Allora, devo mandartela da un'altra email. Per qualche motivo, ecco perché. Allora, compose. Eccoci. Chiara te l'ho già rimandato. Invece a Sara. Ecco, l'ho rimandato anche a te. Can you open the paper?
Yes, sir, it is open. I already open.
Okay. So what we will do is I will share my screen to show the maps that go with the paper while we take turns reading the paper. It will not take very long because, you know, it's not a very long paper, but I think it's a good, interesting start. Can you see my shared screen? Can you see my screen?
No.
Whiteboard. What about now?
Yes.
I will be sending by email later on all these maps. They're a little bit heavy, so I might have to do a Google Drive or something like that. But I think it's important that then you have the whole package together. Let me show you on Google Earth where we are. Can you see my shared screen or not? Stop sharing.
Yes. Sì, we see the geological map.
Only that, or do you see other stuff? No, only that. Aspetta. I will stop sharing. Share again. Okay, now you should see Google Earth. Is it possible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we are at Amiata volcano. Amiata volcano is the northernmost volcano in Italy. Has not been in activity probably for the past 100,000 years. Is in southern Tuscany. Okay, so this is the Amiata volcano. It's a pretty high volcano for the Italian standards, and it's sort of a cone with two main peaks. And the geothermal fields are at the base here of the volcano, Bagnore and Piancastagnaio. It's a very beautiful area, and I suggest you to come and see it. And if you want me to show the area around, I can do that as well. There are fantastic villages from the Middle Ages. Some of these villages mentioned also in the Divine Comedy by Dante, and beautiful art history, fantastic food. Very, very nice thermal baths. So now you have seen here the area, and we go back and try to see again the geologic map. Who is willing to start reading? Ed, do you want to start reading? You that you know English perhaps the best of all of us, or?
Reading the material which you send us
Yeah.
by mail.
The paper by Calamai, Cataldi, Squarci, and Taffi, Geology, Geophysics, and Hydrogeology of the Montemiata Geothermal Fields. This paper has come out in the first, in the journal Geothermics in the publication #1. Have everybody opened the paper in front of him? I cannot hear any of you.
Yeah, we have it.
Yes, I also have. It is open.
Okay. Do you want to start reading, or someone else from the introduction?
Yes, I will read.
Just go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah. Yes, just a moment, please. Actually, my laptop is not responding. It is getting slow, very slow. So.
We are pushing it to the limit.
Yes.
Ed, if you have problems.
Yes, Professor. Someone else.
Okay.
If someone else read it first, because my laptop has some issues.
Okay, shall I go ahead?
Yes.
I'll start reading this first part. The Montemiata geothermal region is located in southern Tuscany at approximately 80 kilometers southeast of Larderello and 120 kilometers northwest of Rome. Larderello is where geothermal energy was first developed in Italy and in the world to produce electricity. Starting from 1953 to 1956, regional and local studies were planned and carried out in order to outline the environmental conditions relating to the research for endogenous fluids. They concern investigations on the lithology, stratigraphy, and structure, on the surface and deep hydrogeological condition, on the volcanology and surface manifestation. Geophysical surveys followed, consisting of gravimetric, electrical, and thermal prospections. All these studies and surveys enable us to select the most favorable areas in which the first exploitation wells were located. The exploration drilling for and the discovery of 3 geothermal fields, Bagnore, Piancastagnaio, and Poggio Nibbio, date back to the period from the 1958 to 1968. In this period altogether, 60 wells were drilled in the Montemiata region. Okay, so if you can look at the map, let me enlarge the map a little bit. Oh, sorry. So the Montamiata is all this pink-red area. Let's see. And all this pink-red area are volcanic rocks, mainly lava flows and debris avalanches. The area they are talking about is all the southern part of Amiata region. Bagnore geothermal field is the one here to the left on the west side of the area, and you see the dashed line that goes all around the field. The Poggio Nibbio geothermal field is the one down here in the south. It's much smaller. And the Piancastagnaio geothermal field is the one here in the southeastern part of Montamiata. And you can see all the wells that were drilled and based on which was the geology discovered. Just to make a point, east of Montamiata is Radicofani. Radicofani is a volcanic neck, and I will show you later on. There is a beautiful painting of this volcanic neck with the Medici fortress right on top. Guido Riccio da Fogliano, that is the name of the fresco which is in the comune of the city of Siena. All these studies and surveys enable us to select the most favorable areas in which the first exploration wells were located. The exploration drilling we just read that. Endogenous fluid of the Bagnore and Piancastagnaio fields have been utilized respectively from 1959 to 1961 for electric power generation. The present installed capacity is 25 megawatts, electric, of course. Research in the Montamiata region was practically concluded at the end of the 1968. Starting from that year, results and data related to all studied and work carried out for geothermal development began to be systematically organized for the publication of a monograph series entitled Geology, Geophysics, and Hydrogeology of Montamiata. The present work contains 8 illustrative maps, and the relevant comments represent the first part of the series. The second part was never published. I want to let you know, which is very interesting from this historic point of view, that both the Bagnore geothermal fields and the Piancastagnaio geothermal fields, we will see some geologic section later on, at the very beginning were run by CO2. So the turbines were actually turning by pressurized CO2 that was contained on the top part of the geothermal field. And what they wanted to do with this first run is actually to drive all the CO2 out in the atmosphere so that vapor could come in. So the subsequent geothermal field exploitations were actually geothermal power plants that were working on condensation, so on condensed vapor. But the very beginning is interesting that the power plants were actually run through CO2 that was run directly through the turbines. Very small turbines that they produce about 3, 4, I think at maximum 5 megawatts electric. Is there any question?
No, sir.
No. So is there anyone that is willing to read plate 1, which is the one we are looking at? Angela, or
Yeah,
you want to try?
I can read.
Okay.
In the Monte Amiata geothermal region, sedimentary rocks occur, which are part of 4 stratigraphic sequences, as well as volcanities, which can be referred to 3 volcanic groups. From bottom to top, see summary of stratigraphical and tectonic relationship. The 4 sedimentary sequences are made up by Tuscan Formation, Upper Trias Oligocene, formations of uncertain stratigraphical position, Upper Cretaceous Oligocene, Alberese Pietraforte Group, Cretaceous Eocene, and Neogenic formations, Upper Miocene, Lower or Middle Pliocene. The volcanic rocks, Lower Pliocene Quaternary, are attributable to the Monti Volsini volcanic group in the southeast sector of the plate and to the Radicofani and Mount Amiata volcanic groups occurring in the central part of the plate. Sporadic and thin deposits of travertine, alluvium and debris also occur in the area surveyed.
So it's sufficient. So let's look at the map. So we said that everything that Mount Amiata is made of are these lava flows and debris avalanches, volcanic debris avalanches that form the whole structure of the volcano, with 2 lava flows are the dark red flows that go to the north and to the east southeast. I'm not sure if you can see them. Okay, everything that is in yellow on the right, these are sediments, Pleistocene sediments, so very recent marine sediments that were filled in when the area that is in yellow was under the sea, because structurally it is a graben. A graben means that is a block that is pushed down, while on the side there are 2 blocks that are pushed up. And this is a major structure that goes down from Siena all the way to the lake of Bolsena. And the Radicofani volcanic neck is right in the center of this graben. This is very recent, and what is interesting is that some of these sediments are now at an elevation which is above 900 meters above sea level. This means that there has been a very large uplift in the area, lifting all the formations up, and this is supposed to be due to a large intrusion that formed the roots of Mount Amiata and Radicofani volcanoes. Please interrupt me if I'm using words which you do not know. In age, before the intrusion, are all the other rocks in the area. Now, the rocks that are marked in blue, like here northwest of Amiata volcano and just south of Amiata volcano, and on the other side of the graben here, these pinkish and blue rocks, these are carbonate rocks and are part of the so-called Tuscan Formation. Between the Tuscan Formation and the volcanic rocks are a set of rocks which are less permeable and are here in gray and a little bit gray on the south, all this area on the south, and then assume a color which is green to brown on the north and west of Montamiata. These rocks tend to be less permeable of the carbonate rocks, the one in blue that we saw, and of the volcanic rocks, both of which have high permeability due to fractures, mainly cooling fractures and faults on Montamiata, only obviously faults and fractures in the carbonate rocks. Now the geothermal field is in the carbonate rocks, which north of Amiata tend to be closer to the surface, and they outcrop here in the northwest. On the map, you see all these circles with a small arrow on top, and these are thermal springs. Many of them are gas thermal springs where only gas come out, but springs in the lower part of the area are also thermal springs with hot water, with fantastic, beautiful baths. What the reason of the presence of the geothermal fields on the southern part of Amiata is because between the geothermal fields, which is in the carbonate rocks, and the surface, are the chaotic complexes, which are this gray material of very low permeability. So in practice, the rainwater is not allowed to infiltrate and cool down the geothermal area. And this is what makes a good geothermal field, is a geothermal field that is isolated from the surface by impermeable rocks or relative impermeable rocks. You will see later in one of these maps the geothermal gradient, and you will see how important this impermeable cover is to stop cold water to infiltrate down into the geothermal field and to cool down the geothermal field. The reason why the Poggio Nibbio geothermal field just south of Amiata was never really developed as a geothermal field is because the temperatures are not very high, and are not very high because the impermeable cover is very thin. And so the geothermal field has been actually cooled down in time by rainwater, by infiltrating rainwater. You can see the faults. There are these red lines that run usually north-south. These are major faults that cut through the geologic structure around. Now, let's go ahead and look at plate number 2. Let's see if I can show you plate number 2. Plate number 2 are all the cross sections. The important cross sections are 2 in particular that I want you to look at. Let me share my screen again. Can you see the shared screen now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's go to plate number 2. You can read through the geology here on your own if you are interested. What I would like to point out is that this paper was published well before the well before plate tectonics. So everything here is interpreted in terms of gravitational tectonics and not plate tectonics as it is now. So I will give you also more recent paper that give a more recent interpretation, more recent geological interpretation of the area. But the observations are exactly the same. Nothing has really changed since then. So if we go in the paper to see plate 2 and 3.
Yes.
Actually, what I might do is I show you plate 3 as opposed to plate 2. Because plate 3 is a map, it's easier to understand at the beginning, and then we go back to plate 2. So is there anyone can read these 2 paragraphs of plate 2, please?
Sir, the file which you sent me by email is not opening with me. Say the PDF is corrupted or it has some privacy issue.
Is this you, Ed?
Sorry.
Who is saying that the PDF is corrupted?
I eat.
Ed, okay. Ed. So you're not able to read it through?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I have to send it again.
Yes.
Has anyone else problem with the paper? Send again. Okay, Ed, I'm sending it again to you.
Okay, sir.
Chiara, vuoi provare a leggere te?
Sì, ok.
No, tanto è corto.
The oldest formation known in the Monte Amiata geothermal region consists of Upper Trias, Carnic, Philitis.
No, aspetta. Leggi semplicemente plate 2 and 3.
Oh, wait a moment.
Page 3.
Okay. Okay.
Vai.
Plates 2 and 3 are the result of the geological investigation in the surface and of the numerous data gathered from geophysical prospecting and deep drillings. The main structural features recognizable at the surface can be related to 2 tectonic styles, a folding style and a faulting style.
Okay, now
Go to the notes.
No, stop for a second. We look at the map. Okay, the folds in this map that you will have later on are indicated by these lines with an arrow, these purple lines that tend to go mainly north-south, and these are anticlines. Anticlines means is a fold, is an upward fold. And then there are related synclines, which are still the purple arrows, but they are empty arrows. I'm not sure if you can see it on the map now. On the right, is an anticline, which means the bending is upward, and on the left is a syncline, which means the bending is downward. So you can see that the area has a general north-south pattern of folds, but in the area around the volcano, these folds tend to be east-west. So there is a direct influence of the volcano on the folding structure of the area around. And this means that some of these folds also belong or have the age of the volcano or are even younger of the volcano. Do you understand this? Please say yes or no. Have I lost all of you?
No, we are hearing.
Yeah, so this is very important because it means that some of the structures in which are the geothermal fields have been influenced by the tectonics, the volcanotectonics that were in place during the formation of the volcano and also afterwards. Now, on this map, you see also the folds, and the folds are indicated on the folds inside the volcanoes are this dashed line with a sort of a small square on one side, these dashed empty lines. Outside the volcanoes are usually indicated with red lines. What is interesting is that inside the volcano, there are a very large number of folds. This means ruptures that displace the volcanic cone and also displace the basement below the volcano. If we go again to the test very briefly, and you please, you that you are reading, go to, in addition to the surface tectonics, you just go ahead. You jump the fine print at the end of page 3.
One moment. In addition to the surface tectonic features described above and to the relationship existing between the various structural complexes or units, Plate 3 also shows the trends of the main positive and negative features on top of the evaporatic
formation.
Okay.
This evaporitic formation is the top of the Toscan formation and is constituted mainly by gypsum that and limestone that were formed during a period of evaporation of all the seas around, so that the salts in the sea were directly deposited on top of the carbonatic rocks. Plate 3, sorry.
Plate 3 therefore shows also the considerable disharmony existing between the varied features of the evaporatic formation and the superficial feature of all the overlying formation. From a regional viewpoint, the two tectonic styles described above are the results of the tectonic phases which have controlled the geological history of the region, from its emergence out of the Apenninic through the present time.
Okay, so this is about this plate 3. Let's go to see plate 2. Can you see plate 2?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to enlarging just for you to see. This here is the radicophony neck, and in the center of the graben, of the Siena graben, Mount Amiata you will see in section 2 here, and this is a section that runs northeast on the right to southwest on the left. And then we're going to see a little bit section 7, which is instead just about, okay, just about from north to south. Okay, so this is Mount Amiata. There are two main chimneys that form the volcano. And you can see that the volcano is made in this cross section by two layers, an ancient layer of lava flows, which is the one at the bottom in pink, and a more recent eruption of lavas, which are laid on top of the first set of lavas. Now you are seeing these very large craters that are filled in with volcanic material. And you see the geothermal fields of Bagnore on the left-hand side and of Piancastagnaio on the right-hand side. Let's see the, sorry, Bagnore. This is actually, I was wrong. This is northwest. This is San Filippo, where the limestone crop out. And you can see that the gypsum below is extremely thick. And this is where the geothermal field is. And out here are all the hot springs. Now you see in this area, there is no cover by impermeable units. The impermeable units are the ones that run below the volcano in sort of pale blue color. Can you see it below the volcano? It's kind of pale blue color with sort of a chaotic drawing on it. And below that is the carbonate rocks, on top of which are the anhydrite, which is this pinkish kind of formation. Now, because of this, the geothermal field on the right-hand side of Mount Amiata, northwest of Amiata, has very low temperature. The water comes out here at about 40 centigrade, 60 centigrade, very low temperature. Instead, on the southeast, the Bagnore field, you see that the formation, the evaporitic formation at the bottom, the pinkish formation, all on top of them, apart from the falls, there are this cover that is the chaotic formation, the pale blue and green, which this formation tend to be more impermeable and tend to inhibit the rainwater to infiltrate downward and cool the geothermal system. Down here, temperatures are about 180 centigrades at 600 meter depth, so very high temperature, very close to the surface. 180 centigrade is sort of a limit for the low enthalpy geothermal fields, and so above 180 centigrade, we are talking about high enthalpy geothermal fields. And the temperature in these fields going downward increment pretty rapidly up to, say, 250, 310 centigrade. In those days, they were exploring only the geothermal field at the very superficial part, 180 centigrade. Now all the wells are going down to 3,000 meters, and so the top geothermal water are more than 300 centigrade. Now, if we go and see the other cross section, can you see the cross section now?
Yes.
So you see the Amiata volcano on the left. On the right is the Piancastagnaia geothermal field, which is southeast of the volcano. And you can see a similar kind of structure with the impermeable layer on top. And again, at about 600-700 meters, the geothermal field with very high temperature. So one of the first things that I would like you to understand is a geothermal. You find a geothermal field usually when there are on the surface impermeable rocks that inhibit rainwater to flow down and cool down the areas where the geothermal field is. This is the sort of the first rule of thumb argument to find a geothermal field. You need a sort of a heat source at the bottom, at depth, but you also need something on the surface that will inhibit the cool down of the geothermal system. So we have seen plate 2 and 3. Let's go briefly to plate 4. Let me know when you see plate 4.
Yes, I see.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. What did I do? I'm doing it with too many. Okay. Is there anyone willing to read on the notes plate 4, map of the resistive substratum? So when they do a geophysical survey, one of the means to investigate the subsurface before you reach the subsurface with wells, so you know exactly what they are, you do a resistive map. A resistive map is simply done by putting electrodes in the ground at different distances, and as you increase the distance between the electrodes, then you investigate deeper and deeper into the ground. You put the electrode, you send a current, and you measure the resistivity that it takes this current to travel from one electrode to the other. And so, for instance, rocks that are dry, have no water in it, they tend to be very resistive. As soon as you enter the aquifer, then the water is a little bit more conductive, and so you start to have less resistance to the flow of the current. Now, when you hit rocks like clays, which are full of salts and metals also, they tend to be very conductive. So you start to have your current start to travel much easier in clays that you have in freshwater aquifer, or even less in dry rocks. Now, when you enter a geothermal system, then the water is not only hot, but it's really full charge of salts in solution. So it becomes extremely conductive. And so by these differences in conduction, then you can, and the distance of your electrodes, you can model and find out what kind of rocks and what kind of fluids you have in your subsurface. And this is very important because once you drill the first well into your geothermal system, then you can really calibrate your electrical data very carefully, and you can really reconstruct in the full area your geothermal fields with very little cost. Can anybody read plate number 4?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
I am reading. The attitude, is it same, plate 4?
Yeah, plate 4
Yeah.
on page number 4.
Okay. The attitude of the resistive substrate has been reconstructed by means of an electric survey conducted by the method of the Schlumberger
Quadrupole.
quadrupoles.
Jump the fine reading.
Okay.
From a geoelectric point of view,
From a geoelectric point of view, the Trinitarians existing in the Mount Amiata region can be summarized grouped as follows from top down. An upper resistive complex comprising mostly
vulcanites.
vulcanites.
Vulcanites means volcanic rocks.
Okay, vulcanites 200 to 5,000 ohm meter, and sporadically also. Actually, these are geological terms which I cannot read.
Calcareous and arenaceous terrains.
100 to 200 ohm meter of flesch-facies formation, or of the super part of the group of Tuscan
formation.
A conductive complex.
Conductive ones? Yes, go ahead.
2 to 40 ohm meter, including the neogenic deposits. The largely what is this?
Shelly marls formation. Shelly is a form of clay.
Okay. Shelly marls formations of the
Alberese Pietraforte group.
And Scagli Rossa.
Correct. Good. Toscana, very good.
Toscana polychrome marls, shales, etc. of the Tuscan formation. A low resistive complex substratum made up chiefly of the Tuscan formation from a Mollitia and or radiolarics to evaporatics formation characterized by resistive value exceeding 100 ohm. In addition to those terrains, the resistive substratum may also locally comprise member and layers of the Scaglia, Rosa Toscana, and the overlying Icone. What is this?
Eocene.
Eocene
Calcarenites.
Calcarenites, as well as
arenaceous or
arenaceous
calcareous layers,
and blocks of the
flissoid terrains.
Flissoid terrains directly lying above the mosaic carbonatic formation.
It's sufficient like this, yeah, so that we have an idea of what we have here, and you see some plus or minuses, and it tells you mainly related to the structure of this area. And every time they find clays, they get less resistant, and every time they find limestones, they get more resistant. So all these pluses tend to be pluses of the limestone units, while all the negative areas, the minuses, tend to be areas where they have clay complexes. So let's go to the next, very briefly, to the next plate. Plate number, otherwise okay, this is good. Plate number 5. So from the geology on the surface and from the electrical study, resistivity study, then they have reconstructed the top of the evaporitic formation. Can you see the map?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The Amiata area is this central area, and you can see all the folds in black. Now the teeth on the folds are indicating the side that has the block that has been moved down. So Montamiata is right here where this volcanic neck are, and there are indicated other volcanic neck. But what is interesting is that the central part of the volcano, let me move it a little bit, this is Montamiata. Can you read Bagnore on the left-hand side, low left-hand side, and on the low right-hand side, Piancastagnaio?
Yeah.
So you see there are folds on the Bagnore side. There are folds with the teeth on the folds that face northeast, sorry. There are 2 folds, 2 black lines with teeth on the right-hand side. And this means that the block to the northeast, which is upper right, is down relative to the block on the southwest. And you can see that also by the numbers of the contours. These contours are in meters. So you can see that, for instance, on the Bagnore side, can you by any chance see my cross arrow going around or not?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So in this area, you can see this is the 300 contours, and then the 300 contour jumps out here. You see, so that this means that this fault has about 100-meter throw. So the block on the northeast has been dropped down by 100 meters. Now, this other major fault, even more, this drop down. This is the basement below the volcano. It shows that the volcano has really dropped down a lot, has sank into the anhydrite, and the anhydrite has been pushed to the side and out in the Bagnere area and the Piancasagnaio area on the southeast. And you can see there is in the Piancasagnaio area there is a plus, and also in the Bagnere area there is a plus. So the anhydrites are actually forming two cupolas, two dome structures, which are covered by impermeable rocks, clay-rich rocks. And so these are the best ideal for the formation of geothermal field, to have a cupola filled in, over covered by impermeable rocks. Now, because of the presence of this cupola, then below the impermeable rocks, the shaly rocks, the clayey rocks, then they could have formed caps of CO2. And these caps of CO2 were the first to be tapped to produce electrical energy. So let's go to plate 6 for a second. Actually, sorry. Let's go directly to plate 7, which is the nicest one. Plate 6 is, oh no, plate 6 is fundamental. Okay, tell me when you see plate 6, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, plate 6 is very interesting because it tells you the first most important thing for a geothermal field is to have a heat source. This is going to be a depth. The second most important thing we said is to have an impermeable cover so that rainwater cannot percolate down to cool the geothermal field. Now, this is the third most important part, and is the recharge. Now, you need to understand that the recharge of the geothermal field is essential because constitute the source of water for the geothermal field. So every time you face with the geothermal field, you have to ask yourself where the recharge is. The recharge is wherever there is no impermeable cover, so that the rainwater can percolate downward, and because it's cold water, will percolate down very deep until it finds a heat source. When it finds the heat source, the cold rainwater will cool the heat source and heat up itself. And so, because hot water is much less dense than cold water, will plume upward to the surface. And it plumes up to the surface, heating up the rocks that find on its way. For the case of Amiata, the depth of the intrusion is about 7 kilometers. So the rainwater percolates down to 7 kilometer depth, or perhaps to 5 kilometer depth, say to 5 to 7 kilometer depth, start to warm up and flows back upward wherever it can flow upward because it is less dense, and as it flows upward, warms up the rocks. And for the case of Amiata, it warms up the rocks right below on the side of the volcano where you get the impermeable cover. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So the blue areas on this map are the recharge areas. And
Sir,
sorry?
recharge area meant for?
The recharge area of the geothermal field is where the rainwater can percolate downward very deep to the heat source.
I got it.
And that means that you need a large amount of vertical folds that can constitute, and also you need to have no impermeable cover so that the rainwater can percolate through these folds down to great depth and warm up and come up toward the surface.
Yes.
So the recharge areas here are the blue and light blue areas. The dark blue areas are the limestone. The light blue area are the volcanettes, volcanic rocks of Mount Amiata. The green and yellow areas are instead the impermeable rocks. And so the rainwater cannot percolate into this rock and from this rock down deep into the earth crust, say 5-7 kilometer depth. So if we make larger this picture around Amiata, we see that the recharge area is in the volcano, and you can see all the open dots, and each open dot is a well where the Bagnore field on the southeast and the Piancastagnaio field on the, sorry, I was wrong. The Bagnore field on the southwest and the Piancastagnaio field on the southeast are. These, you see, all the wells are generally where you have the yellow or green cover, the impermeable cover, because here the rainwater cannot flow down and cool down the rocks, and therefore you get very hot rocks very close to the surface. And this is an ideal geothermal field because you have very high temperature very close to the surface, so your wells cost much less. Another important things that is shown on this map are the dashed blue lines. The dashed blue lines are the hydraulic head found on the geothermal field rocks. So the rocks of the geothermal field, independent of temperature, this is very important, independent of temperature, have a hydraulic head. A hydraulic head means if you drill a well, that is the elevation above sea level that you will find the water in that well. So if you look at the first line on the north, it is written 700. So if you drill a well here, and you go through the volcanic rocks into the geothermal field, then you will find your geothermal field water will rise up into the well at 700 meters above sea level. It's not very high because out here your well will be drilled at about 1,000 meters above sea level. So the geothermal field water has a low pressure relative to the freshwater aquifer, which is probably at 800, 900 meters above sea level. As you go away from the volcano, the water level of the geothermal field, it goes down, and it goes down to about 400, 300, 200 meters. And this is the lowest pressure found in the geothermal field. So the water from the recharge area goes from a pressure of about 700 meters above sea level, water pressure, to 200 meters of water pressure in the geothermal fields. Why there is this drop in head? This drop in head between 700 meters and say 200 meters at the bottom of the geothermal field, which means a drop of 500 meters in water pressure, is the water head that is lost because the water has to flow from Mount Amiata down to about 5 kilometers, warm up, and then being driven up again to the surface. There is no really big pipe. There are faults. Faults, even though they are highly permeable, to allow the water to flow through the circuit, which is about 5 to 10 kilometers long, you need a really large water, head pressure drop. Do you understand this, or is not very clear to you? Please say the truth. Let me put again up the cross-section plate 2. That's easier to understand on that cross-section. It takes me a little bit of time to do the switching. Okay, can you see the cross section?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you see here in pink and red is Mount Amiata. And this is the recharge area. Remember always that. On the left-hand side, you have the field of Bagnore, the geothermal field of Bagnore. And on the right-hand side, you have the hot springs of Bagni San Filippo. These are hot springs at about 40, 60 degrees, while at Bagnore geothermal fields, you have temperatures around 180 degrees, much, much higher. And this is, we said, is because at Bagnore you have an impermeable cover, which is here represented by green. Instead, on the northwest of Bagni San Filippo, the geothermal field is directly in contact with the atmosphere, and water can come down and cool the geothermal field. So what happens, can you see my cross?
Yeah.
So as my pointer
Yes.
shows,
Yes, I see.
the recharge area through the volcanic chimney that go across the impermeable layer, as you see, and through the faults, the water can percolate down across the impermeable layer. Here is not represented, well below perhaps 5 kilometers, and 5 kilometers about this depth here. It would be warmed up by the intrusions, which here are not represented, and then the water will rise back up to the side of the volcano, to the northeast and to the southwest, the Bagnoli Field, to warm up the rocks. Is it more clear now?
Yes.
Okay, now to drive the water to do all this circuit, you need some pressure. There are some pressure losses along this circuit. And this pressure loss here for Amiata is about 500 meters of waterhead. And so this will correspond to about 50 bars of pressure. So you need about 50 bars of overpressure in the volcano, or better, below the volcano, to drive the circuit of, at the beginning, cold water that will flow down, and then hot water that flows back up again to the side of the volcano. So another very important point, always remember, hot springs are always at the base of reliefs, of topographic reliefs. They're never on top of relief. They're always at the base, because the circulation, the water circulation, is driven by the waterhead within the relief that constitute the recharge area. Is that clear?
Yes.
Or perhaps not? You have a high water level in the volcano, and I will show you now in the last map that I'm going to show you. That is actually pushing the water, the cold water down to the hot source, the intrusion, the magmatic intrusion, and then the hot water will flow back up again, wherever there is the least resistant path, and the least resistant path is wherever there is less cover, and therefore at the base of the volcano. And this is why, if you go to the Alps, all the hot springs, even in Germany, are at the base of the Alps. The recharge area is in the Alps, and the hot geothermal fields and springs are at the base of the Alps, right where the flatlands start. Now, for you in Pakistan, is the same. You have the,
yes.
What is it called? The Hindu Kush there, right?
Yes.
The main mountains. You do have a large amount of hot springs, and you find these hot springs almost in the flatlands.
Yes.
And that is where also you find your geothermal fields. If you would drill inside the volcano here, you will find temperature, rain temperature. And it's only at the base you find high temperature, because the rising hot plumes at the base of the relief warm up the rocks. Let me show one of these. Actually, I need two more maps to show you. These are C, and this is, okay, very briefly, plate 7, and then we interrupt. Plate 7. Plate 7. Plate 7 is this. Tell me when you see plate 7, please.
Yes, I see.
Do the Italians see plate 7?
Yes.
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 Okay, I just want you to show the cross sections. And the two cross sections are the one we have seen before, with the two volcanic chimneys, the one on top, and this is the northeast southwest, and the other one which is northwest southeast, with just one volcanic chimney. You see within the volcano, which is dark gray, you see the aquifer inside the volcano, light blue. Can you see it? Say yes or no.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So you see the light blue, and on the map on top of the light blue, you can read the level above this line are level above sea level of the aquifer. The aquifer goes up to 1,200 meters. That is the last line. So the aquifer within the volcano, the Amiata volcano, is 1,200 meters above sea level. The aquifer we just saw before, below the volcano, below the impermeable layer, into the volcanic rock, is about 700 meters. So you are losing 500 meters of waterhead to cross the impermeable layer through the volcanic chimneys and the faults. So just to cross those perhaps 400 or 500 meters of impermeable layer, you lose 50 bar of water pressure. Then you lose 50 more bar of water pressure to circle the cold water from the volcano down to the hot spot and back up again. So the waterhead loss within the volcano is huge. Sorry, within the volcano. Between the volcano and the rocks of the geothermal system below the volcano is very high. You lose much less head, or actually you lose just about the same head, but for a much longer path to do the circuit that brings the water down and back up into the geothermal fields. And this is because, in addition to the waterhead loss, you also have the fact that the cold water is dense and the hot water is much less dense. And that adds that extra head needed to circulate the water. Please say yes or no if you understand or not.
Yeah, I think it's clear.
Only one? Let me, we will discuss this in this last plate as well, plate 8. Very interesting work they show here. Okay, this plate shows you the geothermal gradient. Each dot on this plate is a well that is about 50 meters deep, and they measure the temperature at 25 meter depth and at 50 meter depth from the surface. And through this, they measure a thermal gradient. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Is everyone still online?
Yes.
Yes.
Can
Yeah,
you
we are
see?
online.
Can you see? But you don't see the map, all right?
No, we don't.
No, we did not see.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's see now.
Yes.
Tell me when you see it all.
Okay.
So we repeat, each dot is a well 50 meter deep.
Okay.
And as they drill the well, they measure the temperature at 25 meters and the temperature, the local temperature at 50 meter depth. And therefore, over 25 meters, they have they can measure the thermal gradient between the temperature at the bottom and the temperature at the top. So in this map, whenever you see one, say this line is 1, means that the temperature at 50 meters is 1 degree more than the temperature at 25 meters. And you can see that in the geothermal fields where you get these lines with 4, you have at least 4 degrees increment in temperature between at the surface between 25 meter depth and 50 meter depth. Is this correct? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
This means 4 degrees over 25 meters. And you can see the very high gradients that you have on the 2 geothermal fields at Piancastagnaio and at Bagnore in the southwest, Piancastagnaio in the southeast. Now this map here is relatively cheap to do as it is geoelectrics, and immediately tells you where you want to drill your first wells. Wherever you have the highest gradient, the highest geothermal gradient, there is where you want to drill your geothermal well, because it means that you're going to find high temperatures at very low depths. Is it clear, this?
Yes.
Yes.
On the other hand, on Mount Amiata, you see there is practically 0 geothermal gradient. So the water doesn't heat up as it goes down. Why? Because it's the cold water is infiltrating downward. So this map tells you exactly where the recharge area is, which is Monte Amiata, all cold water down to 5 kilometers, and where are the hot plumes rising up? On the southeast, Bagnore geothermal field, on the southwest and southeast, Piancastagnaio geothermal well. You sort of clear this.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll see you at what time?